There's a part of me that I don't know if it's like I just grew up watching Diddy, and so he is a household name, and we all like know him in a sense. We feel like we know him.
Hmm.
A part of me that has like a little bit of sympathy, like, and I feel very conflicted about that because it's like cognitive dissonance. Because on the one hand, I'm like, you're a monster. You did these horrible things to women. Hello,
Hello, hello, hello.
Kraken.
What's up?
Hi,
So,
Eric.
hi. So Diddy's kids are freaking out because people are saying, "Hey, how did his wife really die?" I don't know how she died, but
Yeah,
apparently they're now tying him to it. What the f? Come
I
on,
don't think they weren't married, but yeah, Kim Porter, the
Kim
mother
Porter.
of his
So how did she
children.
die?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I believe she had pneumonia or something related to pneumonia. And they are sort of asking. Well, her former partner, the one, Albie Shore, that she has a child with prior to Diddy. He's, I guess, like demanding an investigation into her sudden passing.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. They did, and I saw that they did put out like a statement, his children saying like, back off, like leave, leave us alone, leave our mom alone. We don't question anything regarding her passing. So just like, stop being hurtful to us and our family. Like, let us
Oh
get through
man,
this
like,
period.
aren't they going through enough? Right. I mean, again, I don't know. Like, I know that he has little girls, and they're innocent, and they need to be left alone. Like, come on. Ugh,
Yeah.
crazy, crazy, crazy. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that word articulate. You were reading something, a statement about Kamala Harris's, and I think they misused the flavor of a word. They said she needs to do something to differentiate herself. Differentiate, five-syllable word, and that's not what they mean. You and I don't need to differentiate ourselves from each other because you're a taller, more beautiful woman, and I'm a shorter, older man, whatever. Distinguish is the word they're looking for. She needs to do something to distinguish herself from the Biden administration. And this is what I mean about the flavor of words that we got into. And I think the people who said, wow, you're articulate, it could be a microaggression, but it may likely be that they wanted to say, wow, you're so eloquent, meaning we're all.
Well, let's give some context, right? So before we started recording this episode of the show, I was telling Eric that I've often been called by white people like that I'm very articulate. And even Eric said, how did you describe me? You didn't use the word articulate, but that's kind of how we got into the conversation. You described me as like I have a way with words
Well,
and
I was just saying you have a powerful command of the language, but I meant superior, not as a black woman, just period. You're eloquent,
right.
you're poetic, you shape the conversation. You're mellifluous. You have like a melodic sense, so people can
Mm.
listen to you for long periods of time because of your presentation. But that has nothing. But if I just said you're articulate, I can see that being taken. Because look, again, there's a history in American
R-
politics of dumb white men talking about Barack Obama, saying, "Oh, he's actually very intelligent. He's actually articulate." It's like
Right. And
as if
so we
they
got
don't
into this
expect that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we got into this conversation because when you said that to me, I asked you, I was like, I've actually been called like articulate by a lot of white people in my life. And I said, what is the expectation that I wouldn't be? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got into a conversation about microaggressions and that actually typically when a white person says to a black person, oh, you're articulate, like in sort of like a surprise way, it's like, oh, we didn't expect you to speak this way. And then I said, well, I'm not articulate for a black person or I speak better than most white people too. And that has got nothing to do with my race. That's just has I'm I'm international. I speak a lot of languages and I'm, highly educated. So I've had to learn to speak a certain way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that in general, when white people do say that about black people, it is a microaggression. Like we don't expect you to speak this way,
Right.
you know?
So the people who I spend most of my time with in this world would never make that statement. not even because they're sensitive to microaggressions. They're just not stupid racist. I had a guy on my radio show years ago at WVOX. It's so funny when I said that I went into my radio voice. And he said, "Oh, I had this, this African American woman on my show, and she was actually very intelligent." And I went off on this guy. I was like, "What do you mean?"
Like actually
I
very
said,
intelligent.
"Clearly, you're not." I said because you're on the air saying something that stupid, and and this is another one. A friend of mine who was, Thomas Sowell is a conservative economist in the United States. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. And somebody referred to him as the smartest black economist in America. I said, I would argue he's the smartest economist. Like, I don't get that, again, I talk about Roberto Sharp, my mentor, my Tai Chi instructor, but he's my mentor. He's not the smartest black man I know. He's the smartest man I know. And it irks me, even if it's just, I don't know what that is. It's got to be just ignorance or microaggression, meaning it's so ingrained in our society, and I hear black men do it also.
Let me tell you about. Okay, I'm not going to bash black men. That's not what
No,
this
no, no,
channel
and
is.
I'm
But let me just say this. Um, the statement for a black person, this statement is also very. Sorry, I will never. I keep doing the Trump
go,
hands.
man, go,
I've been watching the news too much.
go.
Okay. So I'll talk like this from now on. Instead of this, it's like this.
What does that
Uh,
mean? Does that mean
well,
you're
if this is Trump, this is
uh-huh?
like not Trump. So I'll
Just
talk like
come on,
this.
just talk the way you talk. Come on, hey, do it like a paisan. Hey,
Anyway, so another thing that is very common, especially in the black community, it's like, oh, you're beautiful for a black woman, or this specifically, and this is within the black community, right? It's like, how you have your dark skinned people and lighter skinned people within the black community. And a very common statement that a dark skinned woman would hear is like, oh, if she's pretty, right? If someone finds her pretty, it's like, oh, you're pretty for a dark skinned person, as though there's this expectation that dark skinned people are not attractive. So, like, when someone is attractive from that is dark skinned, it's like for a dark skinned person. And it's kind of the same thing going back to the whole like, you speak well for a black person. Like, how about, I speak well, period, right? And I think, just like you said, like with the economist, not a black economist, an economist.
mm-hmm,
And I mean, yeah, I mean, that's why I'm not to go back. This is the last I will say about Andrew Schultz. I'm not into like the whole hate train or whatever, but the reason why that was so bothersome is like, why wasn't that statement just like about women in general, that women can be difficult, like women can be like a little bossy and this and that? It's not just black women, that have this stereotype attached to them. Women in general have this stereotype attached to them, that we're a little bit whiny, we're a bit bossy and this and that, right? But why is it that in that joke he had to say black women and not women in general? Because he's protecting his own, right? He has a wife that is white, so of course
mm-hmm.
he's not going to go out there and say like, oh, a white woman is like this and that, right? Um, Meanwhile, the black men were just sitting there like little puppets, kikiing with him,
Mm-hmm.
instead of being like, listen, don't go there.
Again, it comes back to like if you look at, see, again, Bill Burr, when he makes statements like that, he's joking because he throws himself under the bus during it. Right. So if I could imagine him saying, like a black woman's going to smack me in the face, of course that's because I'm an asshole who thinks he can get away. Like he'll do it in a way that, and I just, again, I think with Andrew Schultz, I think if another comedian who everybody liked said that, it would be less offensive, because I've seen people be funny about that stuff. But now, look, I happen to have a very nice wife. She's very sweet. My son's mother is Korean. Her being Korean has nothing to do with the fact that she would scare me when she would go into a rage. Not because I was physically afraid, because I thought I was going to go to jail, because I thought I was going to have to throw her out the window. Like literally in my face, like raging. I know Italian women like that. I know Korean women like that. I know black women like that. I know Puerto Rican women like that. And
And
I know
white women like that,
white women like that, and I know
right?
white men like that, who are white trash, who beat their girls. So it really to make it about a color, a race, or even a man or woman is ridiculous.
It's disgusting.
There are broken people and there are lovely people, and like it's again, the idea that we have a genetic predisposition to anything other than athletics. I'm just kidding. Bill Burr does that whole thing on black athletes and how.
Well, let me call you out a little bit, Eric.
Go ahead.
And it's that time of my cycle.
Uh huh.
So, um, so I'm in like, I'm just calling
Call
things
me
out.
out.
Uh, I mean, not to the extent of Andrew Schultz, of course, but like you've been sort of guilty of that too, right? Where you've been like, you don't really see me as a black woman. I mean, now you do because we had a lot of conversations, but there were times when I would speak in a certain way and you were like, oh, you sound like a white person speaking like a black person when I
Hmm.
said something, right? um your friend the other day, and maybe that was a black person, but it doesn't matter. Black people are, do this also, you know
Hmm.
um someone looked at me and said, well, she doesn't look black,
Right.
she probably looks more Indian, right? Or
Hmm.
someone commented on a video and said, why is this person referring to herself as a black person, she's not even black. Like, I am black, right? I'm
I know you are.
100% black. um so I also feel this thing where I feel like, and I also want to say this, I had a boyfriend in law school, super rich, Jewish, like really like, and he would say stuff like, what I love about you, one of the things that I love about you is that you're exotic but safe, you know
Mm.
exotic but safe. So it's like, I'm not like the other black people that he thinks are unsafe, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
maybe I show up in a certain way that's like, you know like okay to him, right? And I don't
Hmm.
think that's okay at all. That I feel like white people sometimes try to claim me into their tribe because they're like, no, 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 we can't have her be part of the black tribe
Hmm.
because we have all these stereotypes about black people and she doesn't fit into that,
Hmm.
right? She's educated, she looks a certain way, she talks a certain way. No, 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 let's try to claim her into like as part of the black tribe. So like I get a lot of like, oh, but you're not really black. Even here in Sweden where I grew up, I used to hear like, you know, my own friends, like white Swedish people say to me like, you're not like the other immigrants. Then it wasn't even like a black thing. It's like, you're not like the other immigrants. You're different. You're like more part of us.
Hmm.
And I always felt horrible because I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you're talking about my parents that came in here as like immigrants and like, so and they don't speak Swedish well or whatever. So you're
Right.
talking crap about my parents, but you're
Yep.
kind of trying to claim me. And I
Hmm.
feel the same way when white people, including like what you did the other day, it's like it's like almost like you're trying to bring me into like whiteness,
Right.
which tells me that there's something wrong with blackness. I'm not
No.
saying you did that. I'm just saying like there's this thing where people try to say like, you're not black, you're not white, or you're not this or that, right?
Well, look. I mean, for starters, I was totally what Pam said. I just thought was funny coming from her, not from me. I wouldn't have said what she said, and I repeated it to you. So I'm sorry if you took offense to
No, no,
that.
no. Black people do it too. It's just a discussion. I'm not
Yeah.
saying
No,
that.
I
Yeah.
totally get it. So, well, I'll give you one of my favorite. Um, this is like a version of that, and again, this is about Asian and not black. But somebody walked up. My daughter's mother is very. When I say very Chinese looking, she just has a classic Chinese face. She didn't look like a hipster American. She was born and raised in the United States, and she's modern and educated, and she's not like a poor immigrant in Chinatown. And this guy walked up to her in the dog run in Tompkins Square Park, and he said, first of all, I don't know why people speak loud when they think you speak another language, but he said, "Hi, where are you from?" And she said, "Chicago. Where are you from?" Like, it was just hilarious, but it is a thing, and I get annoyed when people, even people of color, refer to me as American and themselves as African American. I'm saying, well, you're American too. They go, oh yeah, but you know what I mean. And like the idea that it's white people, Americans are white people, fucking annoys me because
Mm.
families of like people who are descended from slaves in the United States have more claim to this land than I do because I came here after them. And when my family came here, there was already the emancipation, So there are black men and women in this country who have more claim just by time and right than I do. So and I'm not sensitive to that. I don't think because I want to be like, woke or not have microaggressions, because those are going to come out in everybody. But I think if you read a book, you have to acknowledge that I came later than everyone. I'm an Italian immigrant from like 1900.
Yeah.
So I get it. It's a weird thing, and I think it's a lack of education sometimes.
Yeah.
It,
And I think it's also like it's okay to admit that you have like some microaggression for whatever reason, whether it's like your upbringing or whatever. It's like the first, I mean, I have microaggressions against men
mm-hmm.
sometimes, right? Especially when I'm on my period or like right before. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm being honest. For some reason, when I feel kind of like rageful a little bit, which is like the week leading up, and for our male listeners, this is good for you guys to listen to also, right? Because you can learn a thing or two about your girlfriends and wives. But the week, it actually starts like a week leading up to the period, and then a day before, a day or two before, it's like rage and hormones, and you're just like, and I if I want to take it out on someone, for some reason, it's like a man. It's like, and that makes me realize, oh, I think I have some type of, I don't know if it's, you would call it a microaggression. I don't know if it's specifically for a certain type of aggression, um, but I'm using it now in conversation. Um, I do feel like that microaggression. Like if a woman walked in here now, I would be like, oh, hi, sweetie. Like, but if it's a guy, I'll just be like, oh, shut up. And I think that comes from my
It's nice to be on the
upbringing.
show with you. I'm glad we didn't do it yesterday.
No, but I've already warned you. Like I'll be a sweet angel again in 2 days.
Look.
But but I know where that comes from. That's my point. I'm not sitting here like all oblivious to the fact that like I do sometimes have a little bit of like microaggression against like men, not you, like a man,
Mhm.
because like I grew up with like men that were very like hard on me and very like punishing and very like I grew up with very like punishing men, and there's a part of me that's just kind of like wants to give it back, right? But I'm
Mhm.
not a child anymore. Like I can't give it back to the people that inflicted injury upon me, but there's
Mhm.
still that um something inside of me that makes me feel like men are the cause of, but it's just hormones. At the end of the day, it's just hormones.
So right now, look, but you make a great point. Now I want to ask you this question. So I told you about the woman Dawn who met me in the subway, banker, wealthy, threw money in my bucket. Next time she threw her card in, and we ended up dating. And she thought because I had long hair and flip flops, and I was a 31-year-old beach bum looking guy. She objectified me completely. Like she thought I was like an elf, and I didn't have like, you know what I mean? But I'm going to tell you something else though. I played the Glastonbury Festival in 2004, which was like an amazing experience because there's like 100,000 people.
Wow.
It
I would
was just
love to see pictures.
yeah. That's I hope I have pictures. I have some
Yeah.
stadiums from that tour. But I played all of the biggest. I did David Letterman that week before I went over. I did the Glastonbury Festival. I did a stadium called Fitzgerald Stadium in Killarney, Ireland. It was really like it was. Those were the first times I ever got on stages and venues that big. It was amazing. But I met a girl. She was a school teacher, and she was kind of hitting on me. And my hair was actually dyed black at the time because the artist I was working with wanted everybody to look like him, and he was ugly. I don't get it, but and she kept saying, "Oh, I'm like, listen." And she was like 23, and I was in my 30s. I said, "Listen, you don't know who I am. She's like, "No, but you're so handsome and you're charismatic the way you play guitar." And she was going on, and finally, I looked at her and I said, "I voted for George W. Bush." And she said, "You did not." I said, "No, no, really, I did." And she was arguing with me because I had long hair and I was in a rock band. She objectified. She put me in a box like, "Oh, I'm claiming you as a white girl." She was claiming me as like a left of center, like peace loving hippie guitar player, and I'm a fucking maniac. Now I regret voting for George Bush at this point in my life, but I didn't then, and it wasn't her right to tell me. So I know that's not a cultural thing where I was a slave. That's not like a crazy ass thing like that. But We build ideas in all the time based on something, and that's like an innocent version of it. So I can understand. I don't understand why people can't just admit that we make mistakes and make assumptions.
Yeah, I agree. What do you say we get into some topics? Are you
I
ready? I mean, we already talked about Diddy a little bit, but Diddy's still very big in the news. So, um, I want to share a clip with you. Apparently, Diddy is not eating; he's on a hunger strike. And let me show you this clip, and then we'll discuss.
What about coffee?
I guess his first meal when he was first locked up was like Swedish meatballs, and
Did you send them to him?
I don't think that's the kind of balls he likes. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, well, they must have been little Swedish meatballs. Is that? Did I just take a shot at Justin Bieber? I don't know.
Okay, let's see here. Oh, what's going on here?
She looks like me. Who is that?
She looks like you.
Right, hang
All
on.
right.
Let me get my eyes a little crossed. Who is that?
He's a former federal prisoner himself who served time at 11 institutions across 5 states and is founder and director of Wall Street Prison Consultants. He advises people who are about to face the same plight, and he joins me now live. Okay, Larry, spill the tea. What are you hearing about Diddy's eating?
Well, I got an inside source there at MDC, and if they knew who it was, they'd really plot. When people go into custody, they have anxiety, they're depressed, a lot of things go through their mind. And one of the things they do is they stop eating. They lose a lot of weight. Look at somebody coming out of prison. They look like a POW or something, that they've been through the ringer. Now, there's a collateral issue that may be here. Look what happened to Jeff Epstein. I got people every day saying, you think they're going to Epstein him? And I go, well, I really don't know. But they can't have this guy do a suicide. It would look kind of funny. Now, imagine if somebody got to one of the correctional officers, and this could happen. They don't make a lot of money. And there's people out there that he has things on that do have a substantial amount of money. Imagine if someone paid someone off on the inside to actually poison his food, give him a heart attack, and he dies. And no one would really think anything of it. So that may be one of the reasons he's not eating. He's really, really paranoid. He's really, really scared. He doesn't know what to think. He doesn't know who to trust or what to believe. Then he had a religious visit also, and a dietitian come talk to him. Now, there's a possibility that he wants to go on a kosher diet. It's prepared a little bit differently. It's a religious diet. That could be another aspect as well. But I remember when I first went into custody at MDC Los Angeles, and I didn't eat for a couple of days, but this guy's been there about a week now. So he should be in a routine. And there's just so much, Ashley, there is so much disinformation that comes out. Like he has to get up at 6 o'clock to make his bed and mop his cell. That's for a regular housing unit at MDC. He's not getting out of the shoe. He doesn't have to make his bed really. He's probably laying in bed all day long, just stewing and thinking. So the situation and the conditions for him are completely different than it would be for a regular inmate. So your
So
is as
talk to
good
me,
as
Larry,
mine,
about
but
talk to me
yeah,
about the potential that this could be a protest, because Ghislaine Maxwell famously said some pretty strident things about the MDC Brooklyn lockup and the food
well,
and how terrible it was, and that she
there's
had been losing a ton
several
of weight. Is it
BOP,
possible this is a protest?
well, at several BOP institutions, Federal Bureau of Prisons institutions across the country, there's food strikes going on where people are refusing to eat because of the quality of the food and the way they're being treated. And that could have carried over to MDC. But on the other hand, he's sitting in the shoe. How did he hear about it? Unless he bought the little overpriced Sony Walkman radio. I bet they let him have that. Or maybe he talked to somebody on the phone on a limited call that told him, yeah, they're having a hunger strike, and he's joining in that. Remember, the food is bland. The food is a lot of carbohydrates. It's kind of it fills you up, but you get sick eating it. I mean, there's mold in a lot of that food. The food coming to him is cold. It's not coming to him warm like it would be in a regular housing unit, because they feed the people in the shoe last. Maybe he got sick from the food. That's another possibility. I mean, they may actually be moving him. Maybe he's concerned and his
Do you
lawyer's concerned,
know?
as I said,
Do you know,
about
Larry, if he's
somebody
still on
killing him.
suicide watch? Is he still
Yeah,
on
oh yeah,
suicide
he's
watch?
still on
Do you know?
suicide watch. The shrink is coming to see him several times a day, and at MDC they hand out psych meds like they're handing out M&Ms. So I don't know if he's taking them, but they're certainly available to him. I took them in MDC one time because I was having problems sleeping. And after I took it one time, you know, you play a lot of chess in there, you do a lot of reading. I wasn't able to engage anybody. I couldn't think. I turned into a zombie. And after taking it one time, I stopped taking them.
Thanks for.
Wow.
Yeah. Sounds like he needed a pill right now.
So I was just thinking of something. So Freddie Mercury, one of my favorite artists, singer of Queen, died at, I guess, at 45. And he lived more of a life in those 45 years than most people get to live. If you could have Diddy's fame and fortune.
No.
Listen, hang on. But not go out in disgrace. No, not go out in disgrace, but just like, hey, Sarah, you're going to be like the female Diddy, or you're going to be Sarah Vaughan. No, you're going to be, you're just going to be like a megastar. And then, how old is Diddy now?
He's in his 50s, maybe 53 or something like that.
So right. Sure. Then in your 50s, you're not disgraced. You didn't do anything bad, but you just have to go live in a cell and eat carbohydrates. Would you take more than half of your life as a megastar and then end it just like in obscurity, just to have had, and people still talk about you and adore you? You know what I mean? Like I'm actually so vain that maybe I would go for that. Except I'd have to have coffee.
Let me tell you why I would say no, right? First of all, it sounds awful to be not only stuck in a cell like that for an indefinite amount of time, and now he's in the shoe. Well, and now he's in the shoe where he's definitely like not around people. He has like no freedom of movement whatsoever. At least like if you're in general pop, you know, you can move around a little bit, you can interact with people. And to me, I mean, that is death, essentially. That is death. And I'm not done. That is death. And what I want to say is that I've thought about this before, right? Just like unrelated to Diddy, okay? Where I really look at like what's the real difference between a person who's really rich, right? And I'm not comparing that to a person who's poor, someone who's like middle class, right? The difference isn't that great. Like you're still getting to do the same things. You can still fly. You might not be on a private jet, but you can still have a very nice flight. You might even do business class, right? You can still go on vacations. You can still enjoy the ocean. You can still eat really good food. I'm sorry, but these like $1,000 plates, they're not that. I mean, you know, just because some chef made them, or you know, it's just ego. It's not like there's anything like there's a difference between this tomato and that tomato because it grew in this condition in that country, and now we're charging $1,000 per plate. This is all just like made stuff that's made up, so rich people can feel like, you know, that they're experiencing life in a very different way than other people. But you know, you don't have to be rich to sleep in a very comfortable and nice bed. You don't have to be rich to enjoy great, like, you know, intercourse with a partner, or to experience love, to have children. So like really like the life between a really rich person and I'm not going to compare it to a poor person because that's obviously a very different standard of living, but like a medium, like you know, middle class person who's just, you know, doing okay. And that's why I wouldn't choose Diddy's life, because I can be middle class. Like, here's the thing. A person that doesn't have money could still go and party with Diddy. You know what I mean? He was footing the bill, But me as a woman, and there comes the sun, me as a woman, I could still have been at those parties. Thankfully, I wasn't, and been able to experience the same luxury as Diddy without Diddy's money.
100%. Look, I have a close friend who I work for musically, but a friend who is wealthy like Diddy. And I go to his parties and I play pickleball on his private pickleball court. And I skate in his backyard on his skate park, and I eat in fine restaurants, and he foots the bill when we're working. So yeah, so I actually enjoy the same luxury that he does when I'm with him. So being a nice person and being invited to those parties is kind of a cool currency, right? I agree with you, but I'm vain. I want, Diddy will never be forgotten, whether it's for the infamy or the. I mean, No Way Out. When I got that record, man, the sun don't shine forever. Like we're always gonna be together. It's now or never. I love that. Like what he created is in my head in a moment's notice. So I love. I wish I had that kind of influence. But yeah, I wouldn't take it. So have you ever been locked up?
No. And okay, this is horrible, especially considering like the next story that I'm going to share with you for the show. There's a part of me that I don't know if it's like I just grew up watching Diddy, and so he's a household name and we all like know him in a sense. We feel like we know him.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me that has like a little bit of sympathy, like, and I feel very conflicted about that because it's like cognitive dissonance. Because on the one hand, I'm like, you're a monster. You did these horrible things to women, right? And now there's another allegation against him.
I
And I'll show
saw
you
that.
that. Yes, horrible. Accused of, graping, uh, this poor woman,
And she was
and
such an innocent. Yeah.
allegedly, and it's just really, yeah, it's cognitive dissonance for me because on the one hand, thinking of Diddy starving in a cell and feeling like, I mean, suicidal, wanting to kill himself, part of me is like, man, I feel bad. But then I'm like, but
No,
you did these
I
things. So it's
believe
like,
me. I spoke about this the other day with someone. It's the same thing for me. It's like, for someone's reign as like, at the top to end just so horribly, and the idea of going from his Miami Star Island or whatever to, but the woman who Gloria Allred had with her on that press conference yesterday, and I'm not saying that any woman should ever be treated he's disgusting, but she wasn't even somebody who was trying to suck up to him. She was like, her boyfriend worked for Diddy. So
yeah,
she was like she wasn't even, there was no part of her that could even get excited in an innocent way because she didn't even want to be there. It's so horrible. And then they have video of her being raped. Oh wait, being ard. We can't say that word. I don't
yeah,
want to say that, and I don't
yeah,
want to say that word. It's just horrible.
yeah. I just
So
always
that
say graped. I've heard it on other channels.
grape,
People say graped.
graped. So she's been
Yeah.
graped, and so when I was listening to that press conference, I'm like, I don't care if he gets eaten by cockroaches. And I don't mean that because I don't have compassion. And look, and he could have a spiritual awakening in there and really get on his knees and cry and say, he could wake up. The fever could break and he could realize, oh my God, I'm a horror, and maybe do good work in prison and redeem himself as a human to a certain extent. But I
Mhm.
can't feel bad for him. And whatever his path is, this may be the greatest thing that ever happens to him because he may find a God that works.
Yeah. And I think, this is difficult because there's, millions of people locked up right now. And I don't have the same energy towards them, right? People that have been accused and convicted of, sexual assault. Um, and I don't know. It's a very curious case for me because I don't really understand why I sympathize with him to a certain extent. Maybe it really is because he feels like a person that I know because I've
Mhm.
seen him so much. Um, but if this is any other person that's, well, maybe it's also because he hasn't been convicted yet. And I think, um, more evidence will come to surface because so far other than the Cassie video,
That video is
uh,
horrible.
right. And so but that's different than sexual assault, right? But and I've said this before, for that alone he deserves to be in jail, right? But all these other things, I think for me, once there's been like concrete more like evidence and he's been put away, I think maybe that will kind of like resolve it more, because there's millions of people locked behind bars right now that I don't sympathize for, where I'm like, yeah, like lock them up and throw away the key, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder what that thing is with Diddy. And I was thinking about it this morning, and this is what occurred to me. I think it's because all these things are coming out, but we're not hearing from him. I almost feel like it's a disservice to um to the public
Mm-hmm.
that we don't get to hear his rebuttals or like his anything from him, because it's, and this goes to being a public figure, because in a normal situation when someone is accused, that person, like in a private setting, that person can like stand up and say, no, I did this or didn't do this, right? But
Mm-hmm.
because he's one, a public figure, and he is now locked up, um we don't get to hear anything from him, obviously for legal reasons, but maybe not even for legal reasons. Maybe he just wouldn't have, these rumors have been out there since the 90s, and he didn't speak on them then either.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just something curious about so many allegations being um thrown against the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
um and then feeling like he can't defend himself. I almost feel like, wait, am I reacting to a feeling of that he's being bullied a little bit? And he deserves to be bullied, but it's still this like empathy, I think, that I feel um for just a human being. Take away the fact that he's Diddy, take away the fact that he's done all these things.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm feeling empathy in a way that maybe I would feel if this was my brother, right? And this is a very curious feeling, because I want to play this clip, and you already mentioned, this young lady, Thalia Graves,
Mm-hmm.
and in the press. I want to play the clip, but then when I see that clip and I see her crying and these allegations against him, I do believe her. So that
Mm-hmm.
also makes me feel like F this guy, like,
Right.
lock him up, throw away the key. He shouldn't like see the light of day just for like a percentage of the things that he's being accused of. But anyway,
Right.
it's very conflicting, and I think for myself, I will feel some type of resolution once there's a conviction and this kind of settles down, because there's just so much coming at me. I'll play this clip real quick.
And with me is our client, plaintiff Thalia Graves. Today, we filed a lawsuit in the United States District Court, Southern District of New York, for our client, plaintiff Thalia Graves, who is given permission to use her name. The case number of the 26-page complaint is 1:24-CV-07-201. In her lawsuit, Thalia, through her attorneys, sues Sean Diddy Combs, also known as the defendant, and another individual and other entities. The complaint alleges in part, in the first cause of action, that defendant Combs and another defendant committed a, quote, violation of New York City Victims of Gender Motivated Violence Protection Act by viciously and violently forcing sexual contact, oral sex, and sexual intercourse on the plaintiff, end quote. In addition, the complaint alleges in the second cause of action that defendant Combs and another defendant committed a violation of New York civil rights law, quote, section 52-B, end quote, by, quote, raping plaintiff and recording it. Defendants caused plaintiff to be depicted in a video image, unclothed and with intimate body parts exposed, and engaged in sexual conduct with another person, end quote. The lawsuit also alleges that, quote, defendant Combs and another defendant published and or disseminated the videos without plaintiff's knowledge or consent. On information and belief, defendants have continued to disseminate the video including by selling it as pornography through the present, end quote.
Yeah. So, I mean, you already stated this, but basically, what she's saying in legalese over there is that she was raped by Diddy and his bodyguard. She was drugged and then restrained down to like on a pool table, and
Hmm.
they filmed the entire thing, and they've been using it as blackmail against her. And when she's been asked why she hasn't come forward sooner, it's because allegedly Diddy threatened to destroy her life, and this is all alleged, of course. This is a suit. But I don't know, seeing that we've heard this from so many other people, it's believable, right?
Hmm. Yeah, it's yeah, it is pretty unbelievable. And but see, for me, I don't know that anybody can ruin anyone's life so easily in this situation. Like she would be embarrassed and mortified, obviously, if the whole world saw that video. But sometimes, and I'm not saying this because I'm not a woman, but I mean, there's a part of me that thinks she just knows on some level that she needs to see this guy go down, and if she can help, it actually gives her freedom from those threats and stuff. But the poor thing, like I'm a bit of a dirtbag, so if a video surfaced of me having sex voluntarily or involuntarily, I'd be like, whatever. Like, I don't mean like whatever, but I mean like I wouldn't think that's going to destroy my life. But this woman, she just seems so innocent and pure. Like, she just seemed like somebody you can't even imagine her being within a mile of these gangsters. You know what I mean? These types of people. It was just heartbreaking to see the particular woman. And again, maybe that's some kind of bias where I need to be more sympathetic to everyone, but she just seemed like she didn't belong. Like she didn't want to be there, it seemed. Like not in the grape, of course, but it seemed like she didn't even want to be a part of the hip hop culture. She just seemed like she was out of place. I don't know what it was about
Why
her.
why do you say that?
Just, and it may be just her demeanor and the demure approach because of the seriousness of the setting. But when I read the story, I think her boyfriend worked for Diddy, and it just seemed like like sometimes when I have Sheila with my crew of people, I'm just like, oh my God, she's too good for this. She doesn't belong in the shit talking and the rock and roll, whatever we do. And you know what I mean? Like my friends who are in hip hop culture and rap and produce, there's a grit and a strength they have for that world that this girl just didn't seem like she had that. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is. It just seemed she seemed so out of place in that environment, even in an innocent way. I don't know what it was. Maybe that's like some kind of microaggression. I don't know.
Yeah, I actually take a little bit of offense to that because even if it was someone that was comfortable in the hip hop world or setting, it would be just as horrible.
But I
I don't
said that.
understand really.
No, I said that, and I agree with that. But it's kind of like, how do you have sympathy for Diddy after what he did? There's a certain like it's. I guess because I know people, men and women, who go into crazy situations wanting to get something out of the situation, and then to this, it just seems like some people are willing to play a certain amount of a game, and then they find out, oh my God, like all of Harvey Weinstein's victims and stuff. It's just like what they weren't expecting it, but they're in that world. But it just seems like she was dragged from like work, and then she ended up at her boyfriend's work, and it just seemed like, I don't know what it is about that girl. It just made me want to cry. I don't know. It's not a lack of sympathy for the other people. It's just, I don't know. Maybe she reminds me of my daughter. I don't know. There's just something that killed me about. That's when my sympathy for Diddy ended, when I saw that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's horrible when seeing like, so on the one hand it's like, oh, he's locked up and suicidal and he's not eating, and that's horrible, but then you hear what he has allegedly done to this woman, and it's just like he should have stopped eating 20 years ago when this happened.
Right, so he
Right?
couldn't
Like
harm these people.
right, like maybe, so it's like and I think it's good that, I mean, some people might say like, why is she coming forward now? And the internet is going to talk. It's like, oh, it's some money grab. Why is she coming forward now when
Yeah,
she could have?
that didn't
And that's
seem like that. That
yeah, and that's horrible because we've also seen this like in both Epstein and the Weinstein case that when one victim comes forward, more victims are more likely to come forward. And Diddy wasn't just threatened to disseminate this video. I mean, when he said that he threatened her to destroy her life, that could have also meant like
beating her up and stuff.
I don't know what it meant, but I mean, he's a very intimidating man, and I mean, he's one of the allegations against him is blowing up a car,
Yeah,
Kid Cudi's car, because he spoke to Cassie. So it's like,
that's
I think
crazy.
there's a lot of intimidation going on and a lot of harassment that's happened allegedly, that we've been hearing from other victims as well. So again, yeah, so it's that conflicting thing,
So,
right? Yeah.
you use the word, and I think properly, and I don't think this is just legalese for you, and I say allegedly, right? You can't, the fact that we convict people in the court of public opinion is horrible, right? He is innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
But based on the fact that he was denied bail, requested by the prosecutors, denied by the judge, they must have a pretty strong indictment. Like, in other words, there must just be so much stuff. But then I ask myself, you heard that prison guy, the prison consultant saying, hey, he could be poisoned. You realize this thing where they get rid of people is real. Who at the top could be behind no bail? Who at the top how do we know this judge isn't paid off? How do we know, again, because they keep talking about his high up entertainment friends who need to be protected, but I think this goes higher up than that. And by the way, I'm about to mention Barack Obama. I don't think Barack Obama is a dirtbag at all. I don't think he engages in that kind of stuff. There's a video I saw on MTV of Diddy with Barack Obama years ago. And he starts saying, like, see, everybody here is sweating. I don't sweat because I'm cool. I do this all the time. And he's like kind of bragging to everybody that he's so cool. And he's doing this to the president of the United States. And Barack Obama was so funny. He said, yeah, maybe you should try putting on one of those designer shirts of yours. You'd be sweating like me. And then Obama takes his sport jacket off. And it just seemed narcissistic that he's talking to the leader of the free world and almost like shit talking to him. And that's when I realized watching that clip how narcissistic he must be to think he can get away with this stuff. I would never, even if I didn't like the president, I would never speak to a president of the United States so disrespectfully.
But I also wonder if, and this kind of goes with, we've had these discussions before about like when R. Kelly was, facing his judgment day, can we separate the art from the artist? And on some level, I do think it's also like unfair because I've been seeing all these clips resurfacing where it's like, oh, like Diddy 20 years ago, he said that he was having a wild party this weekend. Or
Right.
there's this other like clip that resurfaced of Kevin Hart hosting one of the parties. So it's like, oh, Kevin Hart was at the freak off. And like, so I think it's also unfair to go back and look at clips that could just be like harmless clips and like attribute everything to this situation. And because I think what's important now is to just really stick to the facts of the case and
I agree with that.
and trust that the government is doing a good job. The prosecution is doing a good job at collecting like real evidence, not like a clip of Diddy at a party and Kevin Hart. So I think right now what's important, I think, is to kind of really distinguish between like internet court and real court, and maybe like I don't know. I just think that like what you described on the MTV thing, it was probably like scripted even and meant to, it probably maybe even like helped the president at the time for his popularity because like,
Right.
oh, he's like affiliated to Diddy. But now looking back, it's like, oh, his narcissism. So I think like, I don't think that part is fair,
Well, I don't think it's fair to use that as evidence of anything, but it was surprising to me. What was surprising to me was it just seemed like a lack of awareness. Now, it could have been scripted, but Barack Obama almost looked a little bit annoyed, like he was calling out Barack Obama for not being as cool as him. Barack Obama is a pretty cool dude, whether you like him politically or not. He's like a savvy dude. Like he's the coolest president we've had, if you ask me.
Yeah,
And
but yeah.
wicked smart, and like like I don't think any of the presidents before or after him are as smart as him. So
Right, but that's not the point. The point is like these things Diddy was celebrated
I know,
for 20, 30 plus years, right?
right?
And like we are the ones who put money in his pocket. We fuel this because we were like, we like what Diddy's doing.
I
So
gave
like
him
there's
money.
also like, we also have to take accountability if we're gonna call out, narcissism in the celebrity community, because it's also not fair because we were encouraging these things. I
Hmm.
mean, even today, there are plenty of artists who are, braggadocious and narcissistic that we all follow on social media, and we're just like, oh yes, click, like, whatever. And then in 10 years from now it's like, oh yeah, he was always a dirtbag. You know
Well,
what I mean? It's like we liked it at the time. It was bad boy. Everyone is like bad boy for life. You know what I mean? That was the thing.
yeah. See, I don't. Oh, I never celebrate like that part of celebrity. I like music and I like comedy, and what I love about comedians is they're self-effacing. You know what I mean?
What do
Like
you call it? What?
self-effacing. Like I would imagine. I could imagine somebody like Bill Burr saying to a president, like, "I can't talk to you. I'm just a comedian." Blow himself up instead of saying that he was cooler. That you know what I mean? So but yeah, no, you're right. Look, P Diddy. Other than the video that I saw with my own eyes, P Diddy is innocent until proven guilty, if you ask me. And look, I would love. I don't know. I mean, if we found out that this was all a setup, I guess I feel bad for him a little bit still.
Now that I don't believe. I
No, I
definitely
don't
think that
either.
he's guilty of, if not all, like a lot of the things that are being alleged against him. I do think this man is guilty and he deserves to serve some time. Again, because we have proof that he beat a woman. We saw with our own
We saw it
eyes.
with our
So
own
for
eyes.
that
Right.
alone, he should be behind bars.
Right.
But I think it's important that, everything that's thrown at him, especially these clips that I've been watching online, is just insane. And now, Kim Porter's book, um, you know, it hasn't been like independently verified that it's actually that
Yeah,
it's, coming from her
her,
and
because
her
she's dead, right?
kids.
Yeah,
Right. Her, well,
she's
also
the
her,
ex-wife, right? She's the
they weren't
baby
married.
mom, right?
Yeah, I don't think they were married, but his, like, the mother of his
M-
children and his, like, I guess, like, the main woman in his life. But and I guess her one of her best friends came out and said that, oh no, this book didn't come from her,
Right.
whereas other people are like, oh, this came directly from her. So but we don't know, so like literally anyone at this point could, I mean, you and I, we're content creators, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it not true that we could script a bit or like a little thing and just, record it and put it out there as if it's true? Like you and I,
100%.
we could stage an argument right now, right?
Yeah,
And put it
totally.
out there and just be like, oh my God, Saran Eric, huge fight, right?
Right.
So and we're like, we don't even have like followers like that, right? There's no
Uh,
money in it for people to kind of like set us up or anything.
Right.
Imagine when we're talking like hundred millions of dollars, billions, like people are going to do all types of crazy things, to get internet attention, even if it is like compiling and editing a bunch of clips so that it looks a certain way, right? That's why
Right.
I'm like, um I stand by like all the victims, and I hope that, he deserves, that he is punished accordingly, but I'm going to reserve that level of judgment
You have to. Yeah.
until he sees his day in court.
I
And maybe
agree.
that's the lawyer in me talking, I don't know, but
No,
I
but
just,
that's also human, because people look. There's a man who I read on TMZ. There's a black man in one of the states who may have been executed last night, and they were trying to stay the execution. And apparently, the DNA says he's innocent, and the prosecutors are like, "Whoa, don't do," like, even the prosecutors and the system wants to. Again, I don't see that he was executed yet, and some of the celebrities were jumping in. Men, especially black men are wrongfully convicted all the time, and you have to believe women. They need to have a voice, but you also can't execute innocent people. So it's a really tough thing. So your tact of allegedly is proper, because if not, then it's just a matter of opinion. And interestingly enough, when somebody beats someone up on camera, it's still allegedly until that day in court. They need to be judged by a jury or a judge, depending on the type of trial, and that's when you're officially guilty of that crime. And I think
Right.
that's
Right.
it's
And I think
important.
also like some things, I mean, this is how I imagine Diddy. Like he's sitting in his cell and it's like, all these allegations against him. And he's probably like, yeah, these things I definitely did. And then there's probably other things where it's like, wait, I didn't even do that. Right.
Right.
So yeah, he'll probably be locked up for the rest of his life for the things that he actually did do. But I'm sure there are things here and there that, were harmless at the time. For instance, like maybe he did fly someone out for sex, right? But maybe that person wanted to be there. And maybe
Right.
that person like wanted to get paid. You hear about it all the time, right? Like women being flown out and rappers, giving them 10K, 20K, because it's also part of the lifestyle. It's like you're flexing, you're showing that you can pay women, right, for their time, right?
Right.
Like you're not a broke bum, so to
Right.
speak. That's also part of the culture. So I'm sure there are moments like that, right? But then there
Mm-hmm.
are probably also moments that are more sinister and actually like, that you would think is like, all right, this person deserves to be in jail for that. I think there are both scenarios. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's moments like that where I think people are kind of like, or where he's probably sitting and thinking like, wait, I'm guilty of this, but I'm not guilty of that because she wanted to come and
Right,
hang
right.
out. But I definitely graped that person. But either way, it's like he's gonna go away, right?
Right.
But I do want to share one last clip, and it's about Justin Bieber, right? We don't
Mm-hmm.
know what's true or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people say that Justin Bieber is one of P. Diddy's victims.
Mm-hmm.
And Kim Porter's in her book, it actually says that she witnessed Diddy allegedly sexually abusing young boys in the entertainment industry. And
Mm-hmm.
again, and then with the clip that we saw of Justin Bieber from before, so there's a lot of speculations online. So my question is, and I want to, I want us to look at this clip, but my question to you to sort of like ponder on is, does Justin Bieber, if did in fact happen to him, does he have an obligation to speak up actually? Because that could save a lot of people, not
Mm-hmm.
just from Diddy, because Diddy's like a different issue, but maybe it will encourage other young boys in the industry to speak up, and maybe there are more predators that need to be exposed, right? So
Mm-hmm.
do you think that Justin Bieber has a little bit of a responsibility? And I'm going to play this clip.
I think.
So
Does he have
ponder on that question, and then we'll just look
Oh
at
yeah.
this.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second.
A 2022 interview from Justin Bieber has resurfaced in the wake of Diddy's legal drama. In the sit down with Zane Lowe 4 years ago, Justin isn't talking about the disgraced media mogul directly, but his past trauma in the music industry, his album Changes, and being a newlywed to wife Haley.
I think that I was just, living in this shame, living in all this sort of stuff of my past, and I wasn't able to move on.
Talk of the video comes after footage of Diddy and Justin also resurfaced on social media recently.
Not anyone could just be in the position that I'm in.
Video shows Diddy alongside teenage Justin, leaving people to speculate if at the time he subjected the pop star to his alleged freak-offs.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time.
You're going to hear about my party. They're going to be shutting them down. They're going to probably be arresting me, doing all types of crazy things just because we want to have a good time.
During the Zane Lowe interview, Justin breaks down in tears when talking about wanting to protect Billie Eilish, who at the time quickly rose to superstar status.
Well, I just wanted to be a good example. And it was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second. I just want to protect her, I don't want her to go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody.
When it comes to what Justin thinks of Diddy's allegations, a source tells ET Justin's not focused on what is going on with Diddy or the allegations against him. Instead, our insider says Justin and Haley are focused on baby Jack, whom they welcomed in August. They've been absorbed in their own happiness and family, appreciating this time together. In fact, building a family with Haley was top of mind during Justin and Zayn's chat, an idea that lifted the singer's spirits.
I'm really excited to have babies with you.
All right. I mean, I think based on that breakdown, he's kind of said a lot. And I'm just going to tell you something right now. Justin Bieber's Justice record, which came out a couple of years ago, is one of my favorite LPs of all time. And I actually love that kid because I'm an asshole sometimes, and I've had like this modicum of success, and most of it in my 20s and 30s. And he was being, like, again, being told that everybody loves him from the time he's 13 years old. Can you imagine having his life at that as a kid? Right? And it's messed so many people up, and he just appears to be a really reflective, decent guy to me, considering what his life is. If he struggles to come out on some of this stuff because of the embarrassment and the shame that this woman clearly had the courage, the one with Gloria, you know, I understand these women, it takes courage to come out and say, I was abused sexually and physically. If he's going to struggle with that, I'm going to forgive him. And I think he'll get there because he clearly is hurt for everybody who's victimized the way he was. And he was victimized in some ways, whether or not it was sexual by Diddy is a, you know, that, again, whatever the allegations are, but he clearly hurts because of his past, and he'll get there. If he's got something to tell, I believe he's going to get there because I just think he's a decent guy, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. On the one hand, you know, he deserves to move on from whatever trauma he's been through, which you mentioned also, like he is coming out about you know, about the fact that he has experienced a lot of trauma being so young in the music industry, and we don't know exactly what kind of trauma. But even that, like, it would be interesting to hear what he actually has been through. I mean, he was talking about protecting Billie Eilish, and that interview was a few years ago when Billie Eilish was in her teens. She was probably 16, 17 at the time. Um, but I don't know. I do think though that I mean, I think about it for myself sometimes. Like, I've been through a lot of things in my life, and there are things that if I spoke up about it, I'm sure it would help a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also this sense of wanting to move past your trauma and be the person that you are today, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I see value in both of that and the importance of it all. Um, and I guess also for Justin Bieber, like, he wouldn't really have anything personal to gain. I mean, as opposed to like someone coming forward because, you know, if they're filing a suit, you know, there's, you know, money to be, you know, won. Like, he wouldn't be coming forward asking for compensation for the
Right.
abuse. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just saying in his case it would just be more like of a declaration that, you know, someone of his stature, that this happened to him, right? I mean,
Right.
if
No,
it
but
is,
that's a great point.
but that's a whole different incentive, I think, right? Like when you
Mm-hmm.
have a lawyer, Gloria, next to you, and versus Bieber, who wouldn't, I don't think he would, everything is alleged, of course, but I don't think he would, like, you know, come after a Diddy, even if
No,
he
no.
did something to him for money or whatever. So there's less incentive,
You
you
make a
know?
great
Yeah.
point. You actually make a
Mhm.
great point because if he came forward and said, "Hey, I was P Diddy'd," that's my way of saying graped. I'm just kidding. So if he came forward with zero financial motive, it would actually make people people would say, "See, these women are not looking just for compensation, and they deserve compensation,
They do.
but they're not gold diggers." I know 2 songs called "Gold Digger," and one of them is not by Kanye. So I think that's really a great point, and it makes me think, you know, if he's gonna come out about some of this stuff, maybe he needs to do it hopefully sooner than later. Did you ever hear the song "Lonely" by him?
Maybe. I
Can
don't know. I mean, I'm sure I would recognize if I heard it. Was it one of his songs that was played a lot, or?
It was on. Well, there's a great video of him doing it with Benny Blanco just on the Vendor Roads. It's a pretty sparse song, but I just want to read some of the lyrics really quickly. He says, "Everybody knows my name now, but something about it still feels strange. Like looking in a mirror, trying to steady yourself and seeing someone else. And everything is not the same now. It feels like all our lives have changed. Maybe when I'm older, it'll all come down, but it's killing me now." Now check out this chorus. I love this. "What if you had it all, but nobody to call? Maybe then you'd know me. 'Cause I've had everything, but no one's listening. And that's just effing lonely." And then he says, "I'm so lonely, lonely, lonely." Now, then he says, the next verse, "Everybody knows my past, like my house was always made of glass. And maybe that's the price you pay for the money and fame at an early age. And everybody saw me sick, and it felt like no one gave a poop. They criticized the things I did as an idiot kid. What if you had it?" Like, that song breaks my heart. Because what he's saying in that interview is what he's singing in that song. It's just like he's been in the spotlight. Everybody says they love him, but he was sick and nobody would help him. It was like they loved him until they didn't need him.
Yeah. And it seems like he kind of got himself out of that. I mean, I know that he had a lot of ups and downs for a while, and he joined a church for a while. I don't know if he's still in that church, but it seems like he's found like happiness and purpose in his family, his wife, and his child. And I do, on some level, feel like he deserves a little bit of peace, because he would really be thrusted into the spotlight again if he did come out, and maybe that would also not be fair to him.
Right.
And maybe it's also, again, everything is alleged. We don't know if Diddy actually did, do anything to Bieber, but maybe there's also this sense of like, there's enough coming, for Diddy. Like, Bieber doesn't really have to speak up if something did in fact happen to him, because the allegations and the evidence against Diddy as they stand now are enough to put him away for life anyway.
Right. But you made a great
I have
point.
to get going. You want to make a final point?
You made a great point, though, about it. Look, if it happens to Justin Bieber's worth $300-400 million. He's a king in the pop industry. He's well respected. He's not just famous. All the artists go to him for help with lyrics. He's a brilliant guy. If he comes out, what he's really going to be saying is, this isn't just some secretary whose boyfriend worked for Diddy. This is all of us. In other words, even the people who you look up to and admire need to be protected at a certain point coming into this industry at a certain age, like Billie Eilish. You know what I mean? Like, that's, I think his statement, if something's there, would be powerful. Wow, we got serious. Next time we need to talk about the fact that Tommy Lee and Brittany Furlan, is that how you pronounce her name? Their dog
with the coyote.
Yeah. By the way, I'm going to bring up a picture next show. We have a spike Kevlar jacket with these things on it for my dog, because we have coyotes in New York City. Yeah.
All right. That's the next topic for next time. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please subscribe so that we can bring you guys more content like this. Appreciate y'all. Later.